But when it comes to feeling things, processing things that are beyond me, we'll say, like the me, what of sort of heavy, we'll just say energetic stuff, energetic processing? I'm just using a broader term rather than emotions, because emotions have lots of different ways in which they manifest, like lots of levels, from cognitive to moral to social to physical to um,
Hmm.
and so just saying energetically, what of material that's arising that not only goes beyond individual content, it's not just my grief, and it goes even beyond sort of the grief. Use the example of your friend there, and the grief of the death of their child, and it goes into sort of a transpersonal realm when the individual or individuals in the mind meld start to confront or be flooded by, I guess I'll use a term of like transpersonal material. What does that, like, is that possible? What does that look like? What are the sort of concerns and benefits to something like that in a psychedelic mind meld?
Well, that's a difficult question, and I'll answer it the best I can. I'm going to give some examples, but I want to be very clear that I'm not being definitive in terms of these experiences and what they may or may not be. So, at a transpersonal level, I've connected. Again, this is going to sound strange, and I don't want to make much of it. Connected to Gandhi or John Lennon and various characters, like well-known characters, and it's one of those things that's really complicated because from an egoic point of view, it's like, oh yeah, I connected to John Lennon or I connected to Gandhi, right? And it's easy to turn that into some big inflated story. And yet I'll just describe the experience, and so whatever that is. I mean, I love John Lennon's music, like I adore the music. So there's already an energetic connection, if you will, because I just, I love the Beatles, I loved his solo stuff. And so, what exactly am I connecting to when I'm going into this experience? And I listed a bunch of possibilities before, so I'm not going to go through the list again. But at an experiential level, it was like there was this outstanding grief that was associated with John Lennon, the avatar, we'll say, of John Lennon. And I'm processing that, and it's like this fractal energetic yoga, and there's lots of movement of the body, and I'm profoundly crying. And frankly, I don't know exactly why. Like, there was no immediate story as it was attached to John Lennon's life, and yet it was like this, John Lennon, so to speak, was present. And I've had that, happen for a variety of characters. I mentioned Gandhi, again, this King David thing. I mean, that one's thrown me for a loop because that showed up a number of times years ago. And it was, so let me also be clear. Like, so when I was about 19, I read the Bible from cover to cover. I had this whole thing of being concerned about, whether heaven and hell was really a thing. And for quite many years, I was like, yeah, it's not a thing after reading how poorly written the Bible was. Like, there's a lot of wisdom in it, like I have to say it's a pretty amazing book. But if you think of it, a lot of Christians see, well, it was ordained and created by God in a sense, through man. But when you read it compared to especially modern literature, it's not all that well written. It's, has its issues. But the point being is that I read it many years ago. Of course, I would have known who King David was. But what was interesting was that, I don't well remember many, decades later, the details of what I read. And in one session in particular, it was like there was this whole thing with David having wronged the Hittites. It was very specific, and I couldn't remember what that was. I had to go back to the Bible and look that up. And David ultimately was responsible for murdering, at a distance, one of his generals, who was basically married to a woman that he ended up sleeping with, having an affair with, and that was coming through, and it was just the strangest thing for me, like processing that at an energetic level, and that was very specific about an event that had happened in the past, and yeah, so there's a transpersonal piece there again, like, and I think the most likely possibility, again, given that we can transcend time and space and we're connected to the all, so to speak, is yeah, dropping into another person's life. It's just that's possibly a thing, and it's not like I'm the only person saying this kind of thing, right? Like there's others who have dropped into the energies, we'll say, of other characters, and whether that's at a truly personal level or at the archetypal level, I mean, I think that's a mystery, and I'm not going to be definitive about any of it because there is so much mystery around it. Um, but another story, if we think still of the transpersonal on a grander scale, I've dropped into, I mentioned genocide in the book, but more recently, I dropped into the sexual abuse of so many people in Thailand, women, of course. And, it's one of those things went to school in Thailand for a brief period of time. So I'm familiar with the country. Um, and of course, all of the horrors associated with the sex trade in Thailand, which strangely is a culturally accepted thing, which has a very long history before the sexual tourism. So it's something that is very deeply ingrained within the culture, stretching back potentially hundreds of years. Um, and somehow I tuned into that. Now, is that because I had been to Thailand and was familiar with it? Or is this something at an archetypal level for whatever reason? Maybe I was touched by something at an energetic level. Let me just be clear, I never, engaged with prostitution while I was there. And yet, of course, it's floating in the ether of Thailand, and it's out there more generally in the world. But Thailand is a pretty central place for sexual deviancy, particularly for white middle-aged men. And so, is it possible that I touched into something just having been in the country? And then it's like just something I'm going through. Maybe there's some internal part of me that needed to be clearing or healed is related to that I don't understand in terms of my own unconscious. So again, a variety of possibility, but wow, like when I'm in that experience, it's like, and I ended up verbalizing it out loud, like too many penises, too many penises. It's just like, because, it's one of those things I had a female healer say to me many years ago. If men could just keep their penises in their pants, what a different world we could have. And it's true. It's true.